This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you love horror collectibles, make sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors. Stick around for more information at the end of the video, or go to the website in the link below. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we continue on with our fantastic fest coverage with one Luke and I were actually very much looking forward to, with There's Something in the Barn. And yes, this was something I remember reporting on way back on Sunday Scaries, maybe early this year. I want to say it was. This was definitely a story that had caught our interest. I think it was just after all of December to Dismember, so we were very much in that holiday horror mode. So, you know, hearing about murderous elves in a barn, I mean, like, sign us up. And then, you know, this was just something that's been pretty radio silent ever since, but obviously we did get a trailer right before Fantastic Fest started, which honestly I didn't even watch because I knew that we were going to get to see it. So, you know, I was definitely looking forward to it. And Luke, how did you feel about There's Something in the Barn prior to its release here? And then how did you feel about the film?
Well, you know, it took me a minute because I had forgotten that we had even spoken about There's Something in the Barn previously until you had mentioned it. And then I, you know, started thinking about it. I was like, oh, yeah, I do remember that small conversation we had, because I know we were kind of getting bombarded, I think, around that time of a lot of. I know we had a story that was like a combination of 3 different kind of Christmas themed things. And we put them all together, and I think it was in there. But I didn't watch the trailer either. But I know when we were going down that line of Fantastic Fest, and then we started talking about There's Something in the Barn. I mean, just reading the little synopsis that they give you, and then knowing it's Christmas themed. I mean, this is obviously, I'm going to be absolutely hyped for this thing. So this one, as soon as this showed up in our library to be able to watch, you know, this was at the top of my list to check out. And it didn't disappoint for me at all. This is exactly something that I'm looking for in Christmas horror. Now, I mean, I think we're all going to, us being Splattercast and being in the horror realm, we're always going to want maybe a little bit more gore, maybe a little more violence. But overall, I think this one really did the trick for me.
Yeah, I think that this is a really fun movie. I gotta admit, yes, I was a little let down with 2 elements specifically, and that was the pace of the film. I felt like this took a while to get going, and it's not a very long movie. But I feel like we were really getting that point of me just being like, okay, let's see a little bit more action. Let's get a little bit more of this viscera going. But I knew from the moment obviously it being a horror film, there's an opening attack, I will say, and that's all I will say. I knew from the moment that concluded, I was like, this isn't going to be very gory, is it? This isn't going to be a splatter fest as I was hoping. And it's not, but it is still very fun. I think I compared it when talking to you to like Gremlins, in a way, Gremlins Light, in a sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, I only mean that in the sense of like, Gremlins is a little harder edge, but you could show this to kids. You could still show Gremlins to kids. I think you could get away with having like, a 10 to 13-year-old watch this movie.
Well, you know, and like looking at it, I put this more so on par with Gremlins, because looking at Gremlins, I get that same feeling with Gremlins that you're probably going to get with There's Something in the Barn. Us being steeped in the horror realm, I'm always going to want them to go a little farther with it. And Gremlins, especially knowing what the concept was initially for Gremlins and then what we eventually got, I mean, I think this is pretty much on par for me, where I get that feeling of, you know, this is good. This is a good, hey, get the family together for on Christmas Eve and turn on There's Something in the Barn, turn on Gremlins. I think this really resonates in that sense with it. I mean, yeah, if you're going to ask me, if you're going to press me, do I think we could have had more gore? Absolutely. I'm not going to say no to any of that. But I think, you know, I came from this, and, you know, we put out a review over a year ago now about with Rob Zombie's The Munsters. And, you know, and that was kind of a moment of clarity that I had during the viewing of there, where it's like, this isn't for me. This is something that I can watch with my daughter when she's born, and now she's here, and I can fully say that I cannot wait to sit down during the Christmas season and put on There's Something in the Barn, because this is something where the gore is lighter. There are only a handful of actual kills in here, and I mean, I think they're fairly well done for what we do
Hmm.
see. I think there's a lot of potential there that if they wanted to go full force, they certainly could have. But this is something where I grew up watching Friday the 13th, so my childhood was a little bit different from people who are like, we can't see that stuff till way later, and that's what my daughter's childhood will be, definitely. So this one, there's something in the barn. She'll be watching this when she's a few years old, and then kind of that connector piece of getting her, if she has a interest in horror, then we'll definitely, go down that route. But this is something that I can definitely see sitting my daughter down when she's a few years old and her having a really good time with a bunch of barn elves.
Absolutely. And I got not only Gremlins, but I gotta say I got a lot of Krampus vibes from this as well.
Yes.
I definitely think it's on par with that in a sense. I don't know if this film is rated yet. That's what I was just looking at. I don't think there's an official rating.
There's some
Um,
F-bombs in it, so
okay, there are some F-bombs. See, that's stuff that like as an adult, you just kind of tune out, I feel,
yeah.
as things go on. So it's like, yeah, that was definitely something that I was not really paying attention to, because I could easily see this just being a hard PG-13. And
Yeah.
again, hard, it's tough to say, but I genuinely do think that this was a good enough time and enough fun. I think that the elves look great. For what they are, the ancient elves and everything, as far as we go into the story. I like the lore that they set up. It is, again, very Gremlins, very fun with that. I even like the moments before the inciting incidents where it involves the elves and kind of the lore that they set up. And I'm just dancing around things, but I think you can pick up what I'm saying with how scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like they do a lot of fun stuff with that, and I think the cast is relatively decent here. Obviously, I really like Martin Starr. I think that he's pretty funny. But I enjoyed Townsend Bunner, I think is his name, as Lucas.
Okay,
I
yeah.
thought he did a really good job. I liked his relationship because you kind of see a lot of this movie through his perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that he was really well cast. I think that he does a good job of kind of being the person who's in the know in the family and trying to get everybody on board until shit hits the fan. And I thought that he really carried himself well in this.
And I think for me, Martin Starr was definitely the shining light here. He was someone that I watched in Freaks and Geeks, and I was a big fan of that, and just seen Silicon Valley. A lot of things that he was in. As soon as his name popped up in this, I was like, oh my gosh! Mixing that comedy element with that horror, I knew he would be able to kind of carry that weight on his shoulders. And I think for the majority of the film he did. I think there are a few other intriguing performances, but overall, like I was underwhelmed other than Martin Starr's performance. I think I was left wanting a little bit more. Actually, we're on completely opposite sides of the coin here, I guess. I thought the character of Lucas, being that he was that kind of facilitator in giving us all that information and kind of being in the know, for me, the performance was not as believable as I would have liked it to be. I think some of the line delivery just didn't feel natural to me, especially when he's in the barn and interacting. It just felt kind of a little more forced, and I would have liked to see a little more, I guess, emotion at certain points. There's an incident with the dad in the barn, and that scene particularly sticks out to me because I was like, I just had a problem with the delivery. I mean, and we talk about
Yeah,
it with
I know what you're saying, and I get it. It's not perfect, but I thought that, at least to me, he sold it pretty well. I enjoyed his performance in the sense of just like what his character, I guess, was sent to do, in the sense of like him being the one in the know and trying to keep everybody in line. But yeah, I definitely in that scene in particular, I can say it was he was a little weak.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it wasn't necessarily distracting for me. It was just kind of, when I would see things, it'd be like, okay, and that's always a toss up with child actors, even with adult actors, but more so with kid actors. Sometimes they're just not seasoned enough, and especially with some sort of subject matter like this, I think it's even difficult for an adult actor to understand how to deliver your lines naturally. So, it's not an indictment on his acting ability overall. I think maybe it was just kind of, I didn't have a problem with the writing or anything like that, but maybe it was just kind of like that emotional standpoint of you don't know how to deliver certain things. But again, it wasn't distracting to me. It was just Martin Starr was the shining light for me. He was every scene that he was in, he stole every line he delivered was great. And you going into the elves, I love the design as well. That's something where I get a little nervous sometimes when it's something like that, because nowadays it's kind of the go-to to do CGI, and that becomes distracting when it's such a big element and piece of the puzzle that if it is CGI, again, this is dated probably before next year and you can't even watch it. But knowing the design of the elves and being able to kind of suspend that disbelief during those interactions and things, I think was really well done. The only thing that stuck out in terms of the CGI was there's a really noticeable scene. It's clearly a green screen, but for the subject matter and for the scene, I think it works because I think there's a particular charm to it, and I think in order to achieve that fun scene that they did have, I mean, you were going to have to do it in some sort of green screen element. So for me, that would get a pass.
Absolutely. And, this isn't like a huge budget film either.
No.
This is just below, I want to say, like a mid-range budget. There's no budgetary information about it. But, I mean, you can tell just by watching it, which isn't an indictment on the film. I don't want to sit here and say, like, this is something horribly noticeable. But, like, when you watch a lot of film and you study the stuff, you can kind of get a gauge for what their budget looks like. And I think they spend it really well. I think that a lot of the locations are great. And it is just one of those things where I agree with you. That sequence, it is pretty obvious that it's on a green screen, but it is one of those things. Again, you're so invested in the subject matter. You're so invested in the story and just what's been going on. And it's so zany that it's like, you can forgive that. It's not like we're sitting here talking about, Jeepers Creepers Reborn levels of bad. No, it's still, it's very passable. And, I think that although this movie wasn't necessarily the, breakout hit that I wanted it to be, in the sense of just like, I can recommend this to everybody. I wanted this to be, like I said, a nice, gory, fun splatter fest with a bunch of crazy elves and things. This, again, like we said at the start, cements itself in me as like a Krampus or like a Gremlins. I think that this is easily going to be something that I can throw on around Christmas time. I could see myself owning this on Blu-ray. And again, you're right, showing it to my little guy, my dude, and showing him around Christmas time. Do I think that everybody's going to feel that way? No, I think that this isn't necessarily as timeless, or as, I guess what I'm trying to say is impressive as like a Krampus or a Gremlins. But I think for a certain niche of people, this is going to become a part of the conversation. If it's not right away, I think that within the next few years, a few Christmases from now, you will have a lot of people who are like in a certain camp that talk about this film and talk about how they love it, and it's become a Christmas tradition.
Absolutely. And, this one, I don't know if it's going to get a theatrical release. But, if it does, even though we had seen it already, I would love to actually go see this just during Christmas time and, kind of living in that space with an audience just to experience this on the big screen. Going into this, if you're looking for some sort of gore fest with elves, that's not the case here. This is in line with something like a Gremlins, a Rare Exports, things like that.
That's a good one too. Yeah. Also Norwegian.
Yep. Where it's a little more lighthearted. And I think looking at something like a Violent Night from last year, there was maybe a more so expectation there at some points from people. But overall, we talked about it. I think I was a little more happy with that film than you were, but you enjoyed it. So it's like I think going into this one, you're going to need to know what to expect, because don't get your hopes up in one aspect of it, because I think that's going to maybe not allow you to enjoy yourself as much as you could with a film like this, because if you think of this more as kind of a family film in a sense, and you can get together with the kids and let them watch this, and make some hot chocolate, and wait for Santa to arrive. I think that would be a lot of fun. And this one, definitely, it's a recommend for me. I'm easily gonna own this on Blu-ray. This is gonna be in my holiday horror rotation for years to come. I'm probably gonna watch this one at least one more time.
Yeah, this is a solid recommend for me. As far as our Christmas films have gone for Fantastic Fest, I think that this might be the last one, and I think that this is definitely ending on a high note. We've had the cult stuff, which was interesting, and had my brain thinking a lot. We've had the psychological torture that was the uncle, which really affected me. But was serviceable in and of itself. This is the kind of Christmas horror that I enjoy. I like the zany stuff. I like when we get into these mythical Christmas traditions like a Krampus, like a Gremlins. Like, this is the stuff that I subscribe to when it comes to holiday horror. And it's a high recommend for me. I think that if you like this kind of stuff, or if you just like Christmas films in general, I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. And again, I know that this is probably going to grow with people as they go along. And like you said, whether this gets a theatrical release or not, I don't necessarily see this, blowing up at the theater. I could be totally wrong, but I do see this, again, having legs. And as we go along, you're going to see it. Because I think that's what happened with Krampus, really. It came out, it did okay, but as the years have gone on, people have really found that film. And I think that this is going to be the same thing. Like a Rare Exports, that's a great example that you brought up. So definitely recommend. There's something in the barn. That's 2 high recommendations from Luke and I. We're definitely going to own this bad boy on Blu-ray. And yeah, I'm thrilled that we got to see it this early and let you guys know about it. And yeah, definitely once we find out whether this thing's coming out this holiday season, which I hope, we'll let you guys know about it. We'll definitely report on it. And if it is playing at a theater near us, I think if I give it a few months off, that I would be willing to go to the theater and see it. I think
once you get in the Christmas spirit there, we'll get our Santa hats on, and it'll be snowing outside, and maybe in years to come we can get David Harbour on this and maybe do a little crossover, Santa Claus versus some barn elves, but we'll see.
Let's do it. But alrighty, guys, it's gonna wrap us up here for our review of There's Something in the Barn. Let us know if you are looking forward to this one. Let us know if you've now seen the film, if you're coming back to this weeks, months, years after this review has been posted. And obviously we are still running our sponsorship with Full Moon Features Tiny Terrors. These things are looking great. As of the time of this recording, they just put out a video kind of giving you a little trailer, a little breakdown. Charles Band talked about them. He had some in hand, so you get to kind of see some of that. So look that up on their channel for Full Moon Features. And yeah, it's a good time. I'm definitely looking forward to getting these puppies in hand and showing them off. So more on that later. But until next time, guys, it's going to wrap us up here. Check out more of our Fantastic Fest reviews on the channel. And it's going to wrap us up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.